So we'll go ahead and get started here. So agenda for today: brief overview of preferred strategies, some of the JD Edwards data model complexities, our BI quick launch overview as it relates to Microsoft PowerPivot. Again, live demonstration and the upcoming webinars. Then we'll tackle questions at the end. So preferred strategies, we've been around since 2002, focused primarily around reporting and business intelligence with JD Edwards. So that's kind of the back-end system that we work with. We started out with doing helping JD Edwards customers learn how to write crystal reports, business objects, related content, and then over the last couple of years it branched into other software platforms of Microsoft and Oracle. So what we're showing you today in this session is some Microsoft stuff that can plug right into Excel, a free plugin, which is PowerPivot. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And it's all real time. So everything you're seeing in today's session, in essence, is real-time data connected right at JD Edwards data. If you're interested in some of the other things, we do have 2 other webinars next week. We'll talk about that at the end. And we also do services for customers, training on customer site using customers' JDE data and our Jumpstart solutions. And if you don't want to go against the real-time JDE data directly connected to it, we have other avenues with either data warehousing or creating an ODS, something like that as well. So we're flexible in the way we get at the data. So what are some of the reasons why JD Edwards customers struggle at getting information out of the system? Well, for one, the JD Edwards, there's thousands of tables that store the data across all the different modules. Cryptic table names like F0006 or field names GBOBJ for the object account. The dates are stored in a Julian format. Amounts and units are stored without decimals. So those are just some of the things about the structure of the data. But then the types of things and types of calculations for reporting, like month to date, year to date, quarter to date, inception to date, time-based measures, actuals, budgets, all those things, those have to be kind of calculated, and that's kind of where the reporting or BI tool comes into play to put this metadata layer on top of the database, on top of the JD data, and make it usable. And that's kind of what we've done with our Jumpstart. Then some other things about pulling in the right codes and descriptions, and some fields have leading spaces, and not all fields are the exact same format across different modules. So there's just a lot of things that have to kind of figure it out. So what is our Jumpstart for PowerPivot? So we actually have scripted out a suite of database views, and these database views run right on the database. So if you're running, regardless of your World or E1, running on DB2, Oracle, SQL Server database, we basically provide the view scripts that are actually doing a lot of the translation for us, as well as some reformatted restructuring of data for the reporting tools. And then we basically then built out some of the models already, and you'll see some of those in today's demonstration. So the views, again, what we're doing is if you were to connect right at the raw tables in JDE, one table on the left here is the example of, let's say, the F0902 table, your account balance file. You'll see a lot of the cryptic field names there. You're storing data, one row, one record by year, and then each month is a different, period is a different column in the table. What we do is, in essence, for some analysis perspective and ability to trend that data, we kind of unpivot that. So we're actually adding, not only changing the naming conventions you'll see on the right with the long names concatenated with the aliases. We organize the field names, the first 2 characters being a DM for dimension, DT for date, or MS for measure. And then we're also adding, in this case, a dimensionality by period, and they just have an amount instead of actually having a different column. And that allows us to do some trend type reporting much easier than without it. So this is an example of something that we're doing in the views. Then on top of the views, and again, the Excel models, we actually are building out some canned models already connected to the views. So we basically take the models, map them to your side, to the views installed on your side, and now refreshing it against whatever the transactional data is. So we've got some pre-canned reports and then some ad hoc, and we'll actually show you both of these in the demo. one thing to note, so with PowerPivot is with Excel 2010, PowerPivot is a free add-in. So if you just go to powerpivot.com, you can download it. If you have any issues, just reach out. So it's a free add-in to 2010. With Office Excel 2013, it's an add-in that's actually installed. You just have to enable it once you actually load up 2013. So again, what we're showing you is actually free software from an analytical standpoint. It's just what we're presenting today is that free software from Microsoft working with an already usable model and view from preferred strategies. So the beauty of this, again, is if you're familiar with Excel and you're comfortable with pivot tables, then this is probably the ideal solution for you. If you're new to pivot tables, you'll see today in the demo, we'll actually show some of that flexibility and functionality that's, so some of the demo we're doing is kind of standard pivot table functionality. The key differentiator of what we're doing outside just straight pivot tables is that all the objects that we're grabbing and analyzing within the Excel documents are all tied back to a model that goes right and refreshes against the data. So today, if you actually use pivot tables in Excel, but you somehow extract with some query and you're copying and pasting or exporting data into Excel and then throwing pivot tables on top of that static data and then redoing that every month, this is in essence a way to automate all that. So to refresh it, you just go in and refresh. It grabs the data, brings it in, and then you can go ahead and analyze it. So it removes a lot of those tedious steps in getting the data into Excel. So we'll start on the demo, just show you a simple little catalog of give you a better sense of the views across the different modules. And then we're going to kind of focus on pretty much three primary areas for the demo. We'll start off with a little scenario of a CEO sending an email to HR manager and requesting some information. And then we'll get into showing a flavor on sales, and then financial analysis, maybe like analyzing a type of management report like a P&L. So you can kind of understand that it can also be used for financial reporting. And then we'll actually take a look at that same type of financial report on SharePoint. And then when we're in SharePoint, we'll show you some of the ad hoc flexibility and functionality within the SharePoint interface as well. Okay, so starting with the views, I just opened this up. This is a sample model just to kind of lay out the different organization of our different views. So the database views, which we script out, again, we break them down by the different modules. There's really three different types of views. We have views on top of individual JD tables. We've got some views used for user-defined code purposes, and then we've got other views that we refer to them as data model views, where we're actually relating various tables together. So in the sales example, we might be relating the sales detail or to the header file, to the address book, to the item master. So we're just where the applicable tables, we're doing those as part of these model views. So a user doesn't start a new report by having to identify all the different tables. And even the way it works here is we already have models that are connected to those views. So the starting point is really opening up the model, drag and drop, and just refreshing it for the most part. So here, if I click on data models and go into like accounts payable as an example here, we can kind of see these are the different data model views that we script out. And then with each of those, there's the kind of the sampling of the JD Edwards tables that might be linked up within that view. Okay. So if you're interested in what modules and stuff, we'd be happy to do a one-off as well. Just let us know. So that's kind of an idea of the the quick launch views. Let's take a look at an example here of maybe an email that may have come in. So let's say like the CEO, Ron in this case, the CEO sends an email to the HR manager. I was wondering if you could prepare a few numbers for me. I need to find out the following. Who are the top highest active salaried employees in the company? What is the average salary for these top 10 salaried employees? What is the average salary for employees overall, broken down by age and gender? Much appreciated, Ron. Okay, this is a simple example. Let's go ahead and open up, in this case, if I'm the HR manager, how I might get about answering that question. So I'm going to open up Excel here. First thing I'm going to do File Open, and I'm going to go find one of my employee analysis models to analyze. So if I go to wherever that might be located, I'm going to open up the model. Let's see a couple different things. So right out of the gate here, you'll notice there's a few different tabs in this model. This is an example of one of our models that we deliver as part of our quick launch. So the first tab is what we refer to as slicers. Slicers, if you're not familiar with those, are kind of a way to filter down the underlying pivot tables and tables. It's almost like parameters or just on the fly kind of report filters, so to speak. We'll come back to that in a minute. Look at the next tab here. Maybe we've got a list of charts. So in this case, for this employee analysis, we're looking at average salaries and employee counts. And on the left here we see by gender, employment status, maybe age category. So again, we're delivering some of these as out of the box. Part of the process of implementation is to, if those make sense, great. If those want to be modified to what you want to kind of be your most commonly used metrics or charts or the pivot tables that you would want, you'd kind of build those and replace those. And these tabs can even be deleted. So it's just more what makes sense for the different modules that you're using. So in this case, here we've got some charts. Go to the next tab. We've got a drill down pivot table where we're looking at, in this case, breakdown by company. We've got hourly rates, average salary, total salary, employee counts. And then we go ahead and drill into this. We might see this table broken down, in this case, by the job craft or job type, and drilling down to the individuals within that. Okay. So again, this may answer the question right up front. I know definitely on the breakdowns by age and gender, we probably can get right here as well. Let's go ahead and show you this ad hoc tab as well, where we're going to actually build something maybe for a specific type of requirement. So we're going to go ahead and focus on that. But before we do, let's go back to these slicers, because if we're looking at these charts, we weren't filtering anything down. So if I go back to the slicers here and pull, let's say, just this one home company, worldwide company, and now I'm looking at within that company just salaried and active employees. I'm in essence now filtering all my related stuff that I've had these control down to that requirement. So now when we look at these charts, I'm actually really just looking at the criteria for that one company, salaried active employees. Okay. So we know that the CEO wanted to know based on salaried and active, but let's say all companies in an example. Let's go ahead and pull all companies now. And want to get, what are the top 10 highest salaried employees. So let's go ahead and click on this pivot table. So when I click on this pivot table, what you'll notice is on the right-hand side is a list of all these objects that are actually been already modeled up as part of the view. And part of the setup is to identify which are the fields and types of fields you want to analyze by JD module, and that's part of the setup process. And we'll show you in a minute after we kind of do the ad hoc how to refresh this and get updated data from JD Edwards. But let's go ahead and start by trying to get a breakdown, again, this top 10. So I'll go ahead and grab the employee number here. I'll just drag that down to the row label. And so if you're familiar with pivot tables, you're pretty, you'll notice, the row labels, column labels, values, and report filters. Those are kind of common elements of a pivot table. You'll notice some slicers up here. You can actually use some default slicers on specific tabs as well. We've chosen to kind of isolate the slicers on one tab so they can kind of control data across multiple tabs, but there's lots of different ways that you could actually utilize the tools. So right now I've got one row for each employee, and let me just scroll down here to a measure, and let's create like average salary as an example, and we'll drag that into the values. Okay. So now right away we can kind of see the breakdown of each employee and the average salary. If we want to go ahead and sort those in descending order, I can right-click on the value, sort largest to smallest. So now I'm getting those. And if we want to do a top 10, I'll just select the employee, right-click on that, do a filter, and do a top 10. In this case, that's what I want. So right there, the first question, what are my top 10 highest salaried employees, and what's the average? Here's the top 10, and there's the average. Okay. If you want to do something like, well, what is that by company or home company or something else? Again, you go in here, grab the company, drag that in, and now you're getting, in essence, by company, the breakdown of what are the top 10 within each company. Okay, so you can actually have that. or in this case, we'll remove it as that wasn't asked. The other thing you could do, if I wanted to go ahead and let's say copy this pivot table, I could copy the tab, but you might want to just even copy a table just within this one spreadsheet since we don't have this taking up very much space. I go here to our pivot table options. I'm going to just go ahead and select the entire pivot table. I right click on that, choose a copy, and I go over here. Before I do that though, let's go ahead and maybe we want to change the name of this to be, you know, average salary or something like that. Okay. We'll go back here, select. Okay, let's go ahead and just do a copy. Go over here and do a paste. Okay. So in essence, we can just even copy one pivot table right next to it, and in this case, now we want the second part of it, which was, you know, what's the average salary of employees overall broken down by age and gender. So in this case, let's say I want to add a couple elements here. Let's add age first. So if I go down here, let's grab, let's say, age category and drop that down here to my row label above my employee. Okay, and then actually with this, to get all of them, right now I'm still pulling a top 10 by age category, but in this case maybe we want to do this one where it's clearing our filter, so we're looking at all employees by that age category. And if we want to go and find gender, we go ahead and grab gender and make that a column label. Okay, then we can go ahead and just collapse each of these, so in essence we're getting it back aggregated up, so we can now see our breakdown of our, you know, the average salaries by age category, by males and females, and you can kind of see, you know, what that breakdown is. So in essence, that's information that's been requested. I can save this and email it out. I can also publish it to SharePoint. We'll show you that later, how, you know, you can access things via SharePoint. Or if you've got a savvy enough manager, they could have done this on their own as well. So before I want to send this out, I probably want to refresh it, make sure it's updated data. You know, data is changing all the time. And to do that, when you actually have a PowerPivot installed, the plugin, there'll be a PowerPivot menu option that will be right there in your Excel menu. If you go back to the PowerPivot window, this is taking us kind of behind the scenes. This is kind of where, you know, some of the modeling takes place and the calculation and the building of that we deliver. But you know, something that, you know, is where we go back to refresh it as well. So if I go ahead and just hit refresh, now it's prompting me for a login and password. So I'll go ahead and log in. It's actually going out there, refreshing the data. Done. Now I've got my updated data from JD Edwards. Go back to my report and just want to update and refresh all my different tabs and charts based on that data. Okay, so at this point, once that's done, now I've got everything updated from what's in JD Edwards. You notice it's kind of a two-click refresh in 2010. This is Office 2010 that I'm in. And with 2013, it's actually just a single refresh. But you kind of have to refresh the back end and then just go and update with the data refresh on the front end of all, transferring all your pivot tables and charts and everything else. Okay, so that's an example of employee analysis. Let's go ahead and just take a look at a couple other things like sales, and then maybe we'll look at some financial GL type stuff. Do file open here. Let's go like a sales example. So maybe in the sales example here, maybe we're looking at 2008, and we'll look at 2 years of data. So maybe I'll hold control, look at 2008, 2009, and maybe within that I want to analyze just data in the central region. So now if we go over to, let's say, our sales trends tab, here we can kind of see our year-over-year sales trending here. Red is our 2009 and blue is 2008 here as an example. We've got sales, gross profit, percentages. Here's the total sales. So again, these can all be set up to whatever you want. If we want to look at this sales chart, we're looking at total volumes here. Maybe in this case I want to be looking at it for just 2009 and maybe just Q4 of 2009. I could go ahead and do that and pick a specific product group or something. But here you can kind of see in this example we've got some sample charts here by the total sales, by product group, top 10 customers, region, sales rep, sales channel, and things like that. So we got, just like you saw in the other model, a couple of ideas of sample charts and some drill down. We can again drill down through the chart here, or through the pivot table, down to the details. So a lot of the stuff we're showing right now, with the exception of refreshing on the back end, is pivot table functionality. The beauty of this is that we're all tied back to that data set behind the scenes of the Excel, so we're not having to manually redo any of these steps every month. Once it's set up, it's just a refreshal of the back end. Go here to the ad hoc, just like we did before. If we want to go ahead and add, as an example, just do a quick analysis year over year. If we want to go in here to PowerPivot and identify the field list, click on PowerPivot, field list will pop up. And let's say that we wanted to get the breakdown here by, it's a sales cat code 1, which maybe, let's say, our product group, something like that. So we can bring that into the mix, and let's just go down here to our year-to-date calcs. In this case, we've got current year. You'll notice in a lot of our, where there's a lot of time-based measures in there, like sales and finance, we've got some naming conventions, and we have a kind of cheat sheet we can share. But CY is for current year, PY is for prior year. YTD stands for year to date. If I was in QTD, it'd be quarter to date, month to date, ITD, inception to date. So within this year to date, we've got current year, extended amount, cost, gross profit, and gross profit percent, quantity ordered, quantity shipped. Again, those are just some examples here. So if I want to look at my current year extended amount, compare that with my prior year extended amount, and go ahead and click on that, and automatically we're going to have, excuse me, a breakdown by that. So at the highest level, and let's go ahead and pull in maybe our gross profit, current year, year-to-date gross profit, and percent maybe. Okay. So in essence, now we're getting down to this data. If we want to go ahead and add another grouping to that, we just go up to our fields available to us. These can all be renamed. They would be renamed as part of the setup to, if sales cat code 1 is region, or or product group, or product line, or what have you. That would all be again part of the setup there. So just to kind of give you a sense, here's how we can not just slicing and dicing payroll stuff, but again, we cover pretty much all the different modules. Here's a sales example. So let's go ahead and look at maybe how to tackle a finance, maybe like if you want to analyze P&Ls with something like this as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up So we'll actually open up this model here from finance. And in this case, we've got a few different tabs in we have a basic finance model, which is more kind of for ad hoc, and then just that'll have the slicers on one tab. It'll have the charts, and then drill down, and then there'll be an ad hoc tab. But this is an example. We've actually then built out a few other tabs here to show you the types of reporting that you can do as well. So I go to this income statement tab, and you'll notice here that we've got a P&L. So one of the things that's unique about a P&L as well as a balance sheet and other financial type reports is that there's kind of this report hierarchy from a financial perspective. Revenue, costs, those subtotal up to gross profit line. Then you've got typically SG&A or G&A expenses. Maybe break things down by variable and fixed, and whatever those categories are is something that's always variable by each customer. Then you get down eventually at the bottom here, other income before taxes, and net income, right? So it's kind of an example of P&L. We can go ahead and expand this. I can see the breakdown of all the object accounts within these levels as well. Month-to-date actual, percentage of revenue, budget, variance, same thing year-to-date. So that's kind of a standard P&L, traditional P&L there. If we go back to slicers, we want to see this for period 9, where I can go back, set this for period 9, and then go back, and now we're actually reflected in period 9. So that's the income statement. You could also do, a lot of customers want to do another flavor of that. Maybe it's a consolidating type P&L. So now we've got that same kind of row structure. However, we've got, we click on this pivot table. We're actually getting that org hierarchy 1, which was, maybe it's our highest level roll up, which are our different columns here. Right now we're looking at these as quarter-to-date values, but dynamically, again, you can have it set up where I want that to be year-to-date. So you click on year-to-date from a slicer. It'll change right there and calculate through period 9 year-to-date or month-to-date as well. So again, this is just an idea. Maybe you want different ledger types that you want to pull in there. So it's very dynamic, and this can all be set up so you can provide end users with more analytic type capabilities. Some companies also want to look at things broken down by month. In this case, we've got here the different period buckets. In this instance, period 1, 2, 3, year-to-date actuals, total year budget, maybe the year-to-date actual plus remaining budget to get total variance at at the end, or variance between the total year budget and your kind of projected where you're going to end up. So it's another useful thing. Maybe you want to see it broken down by quarter. So again, these are all the different things that you can do, and then there's also kind of the ad hoc tab as well. Typically, if you're going to set up some financial reports, you'll probably just keep it isolated to just what you want. So here's a report. We're actually in Excel, and everything we've done so far has been in Excel. To go in and refresh this, we can just go again to the back end and hit refresh. It'll go out there and update everything from JD. It'll prompt us, make sure we have to log in. We have to have access to the data in order to be able to refresh the content as well. So, but some companies, not every company, pretty much all companies have Excel as an option. Again, the PowerPivot free plugin, it's just a matter of getting it to connect to JD Edwards data in the most cost-effective format. But then some companies use SharePoint as well. So Microsoft Sharepoint, kind of the project management or web portal that a lot of companies do use, and a lot of JD Edwards customers happen to use it as well. You can deploy these and share them via SharePoint. Okay, so we've been focused everything around 2010. You can publish this to a version 2010 SharePoint. You can also publish this to a 2010 document to Office or SharePoint 2013. I'm actually going to show you an example of a model that we migrated to 2013, and all these models kind of will migrate to 2013 as well. So I'm going to show you an example. If I go ahead and log in to SharePoint and go to the PowerPivot gallery here, we'll actually look at an example of what that same report may look like and what you can do over the web with something like SharePoint. So if I go ahead and drill into this BI Quick Launch folder, and we'll navigate down to Financials, and we'll look at General Accounting. So here's that report, right? So if we want to go back into this and look at, let's say, that same income statement, we could open this up, and now we're actually looking at that same P&L. If we actually drill into this, just like we can drill before, we can go ahead and get the breakdown by the accounts. But let's say that, as a user, if you want to give them the flexibility to do this, I want to see a breakdown of that, org hierarchy here instead of the breakdown by object account. So if I were to go in and, just click anywhere in here and right-click on that, you'll notice there's a Show Field List. So just like in Excel, I can get that pivot table field list. I can go in here and let's go ahead and grab this org hierarchy, drop that below our row flag here for grouping. So now I've got that, and I'll go ahead and I'll just remove our object account. Okay. So now within revenue, or if I go into cost of sales, I'm going to see the breakdown again by that org hierarchy and getting the breakdown by that. So it's, again, very flexible. You have that ability to do the ad hoc over the web, and just all the slicer values, again, changing those on the fly is all going to be available there over the web as well. So that's one of the things that you can do. If I go back here and we'll look at that same report, you'll notice if I mouse over to the right, we can actually open this up in Excel. So we can actually open this into the full-blown Excel. If I wanted to add more tabs and do more PowerPivot work with it, you could definitely do that. Next option is Power View. Well, actually, we will create a Power View report here in a minute. The last one is, manage data refresh. So you could go in here and have, the ability to go ahead and enable data refresh, and you can get this on a scheduler. So this is where you can publish these as SharePoint and have the data be refreshing from SharePoint. So, you could have it every night, every day, 10 times a day, whatever makes sense given your environment there. So that's where you can kind of just set up these schedules to refresh the data without having to manually do it in Excel. So that's another option. And the last thing is if I want to go ahead and select this model and I want to build this what's referred to as Power View. So with 2013 there's this new concept. You can also build Power View reports within the Excel version of 2013. But Power View is kind of like a more of a with Excel, you're building pivot tables and charts, but it's really kind of still isolated to the concept of individual cell values, right? So you've got your headings in Excel, and that's kind of where you're building into that. This is kind of, you'll notice, more of like a blank canvas. So in this case, let's say we want to do like a revenue analysis. So I'll start with giving it a name. I go ahead and just click out here on this white space. I go here to, let's say, my business unit category codes. I want to go ahead and drag in the fields, this org hierarchy. Okay. So it's now going to go ahead and start letting me create a chart here. So if I want to look at and see the breakdown here of my highest level roll-ups, and let's go ahead and look at, if I scroll down, we're going to look at revenue. So let's grab our calculated revenue options here. Current year, month to date, quarter to date, year to date. Let's say we want current year, year to date actual revenue. So I'll grab that, compare that to, let's say, my budget, and I want to add also to that my prior year, year to date actual revenue. Okay. So right now we've got right there, it creates this table. We'll go ahead and increase our zoom on that here in a second. But there's also this tile by. So let's say that I wanted to tile that with a date, so I can go ahead and just choose a specific date on the kind of a little slider there. And let's go ahead and increase, get rid of my filters here for a second. And we can also take this table and move this down, we'll stretch it across, and let's go ahead and just increase our zoom here. Oops. Okay. So you'll notice here we can go in, and if I look on this like time slider here, I don't have all sample data for all months. So let's go ahead and pull, let's say 2005. So now we're getting sample data there. Can relabel things. So let's go ahead and just click out here in the white space as well. And let's say we want a chart on top of that. Let's go back and let's do the chart based on the same values here. So I'll go ahead and drag that into fields. And we will go ahead and just drop back in those same values as well. So we've got current year, year-to-date actual amount revenue, budget amount revenue, and we'll make that, let's chart also on prior year as well. Okay. So while this is selected within this little chart here, we can go up here and change this into something different, a line chart, a scatter chart, maybe a clustered bar chart. Okay. And now we can go ahead and see this, and you'll notice here if we just go ahead and click on the different time slicers here, we'll actually get the charts update with the different data. So you can build these. Again, you can create, this is just one slide. You can go back to home, add new view, new slide, so you can kind of create these on the fly dashboards, and then once they're done we can go ahead and save this. So we already had one. We go ahead and select where I want to save. Let's enter financials, general accounting. We'll call this one revenue analysis dashboard. Okay. And then we go back within SharePoint. We'll notice that there's our report that we actually built that from. And then below this is the dashboard we just created. If we go ahead and open this up. So again, you can build these, and then different managers could actually view and analyze the data. Okay. All right, so just like before, we can go ahead and just choose on the different values here and get the result. So that's what's referred to as Power View. Again, with 2013, Power View is also part of Excel. So you could actually do something very similar to that within your Excel. but you can also do this similar like we just showed you within SharePoint as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back. So we'll go ahead and I know we're going to probably wrap up fairly early here, but we'll take a look. So if you have any questions, again, still post those. We're going to grab those in a second. Next week we do have 2 more webinars. We've got one on Cruise Reports and Business Objects for JD Edwards Reporting and BI, which will be kind of covering a lot more elements of the BI spectrum there with reporting and ad hoc and dashboards and mobile capabilities and all that. So if that's of interest, highly recommend attending that session on Tuesday. And then the data warehousing, we're doing a session next Thursday on kind of JD Edwards data warehousing as well. So if you can make that, that'd be great.